friends, welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we have a fun little project on tap. We are going to do some cleanup of the gorgeous salvia. Well, it was gorgeous, it's not so gorgeous now. We're going to clean that up, get that all nice and neat and tidy, put to bed for the winter, and then we're going to go ahead and start preparing for next spring. Yes, I know it is November, almost December. It's just like right around the corner, but it is never too early to start planting in your garden for the next coming season. So what we're going to do is we're going to plant some little petite jonquils here, kind of where Brenna is right now, because I have guar in here, and then of course these salvias will be a perennial for me, so they will come back. So we're going to plant some little petite jonquils down here in the front, in amongst the guar and the salvia. Now, this salvia is the Rockin' Playin' the Blues from Proven Winners. We sell this at our nursery. We love this plant. It is an amazing salvia that just blooms nonstop from spring all the way through a very hard freeze. Pollinators go nuts over this thing. We sell it as an annual, but when you look on the tag, it's actually listed as a perennial in zones 7 and higher. So I have great hopes that this will come back next year for me. Of course, in this spot, it is really full sun. This is one of my hottest spots in my gardens, and I've had other rockin' salvias that are not listed as perennials come back for me. So that's a fun little tip. If you have an annual in your garden and you really like it and you want it to come back, like you want it to be in that same spot next year, I tell people it's okay. Cut it to the ground. I'm going to show you exactly how I do that with this salvia, and then maybe it'll come back. Maybe it'll come back for a couple of years, and then maybe some years it doesn't. It's just a trial, an experiment. And so if it does come back, yay, you're doing fantastic. So that is what is the deal with these salvias. Of course, I have my David Austin roses behind them. I will prune them and take care of them later on in the season. That is not the time to do that now, unless I get in here and just find that something needs to be done once I get in with the salvias. Once the salvias are all cut back, then we're going to come in and plant those little jonquils. So let me show you exactly how you trim back these salvias. It is not hard, but I guess if you've never done it before, it could be a little intimidating. Let me show you how exactly easy it is. All right, so what we're doing is, I forgot to mention that I do have this pocket of white salvia. This is a nice little petite short salvia. You can see the difference between this salvia and then this Rockin' Playin' the Blues. We actually were trialing this plant this year. There were some pluses and minuses on it. I liked it at the end of the season, not maybe so much at the beginning of the season. I am going to experiment with this one. I have no clue what the hardiness zone is on this salvia, but I'm going to see if it'll come back. So I am going to trim it all the way to the ground. I've already decided if it doesn't come back in the spring, it's no big deal. I'm going to fill this whole section in with caladiums. So it'll be beautiful either way, but that'll give me plenty of time because caladiums love it hot. So it'll take a while to get the caladiums big enough that I can put them in the ground. By then I will know if this salvia is going to come back or not. So with this white salvia, what I'm going to do is you're coming in and you're just trimming off these big branches. You can see that there's still a little bit of green growth down there at the bottom. That I will leave. Now I highly suspect once this foliage up here at the top is gone, because this foliage was protecting this foliage down here, and we get some really cold nights. Now we've already had multiple freezes, but once we get more freezes in those 20-degree nights, and then there's nothing here to protect this foliage, this too will get burned by the freeze, completely die back. Not a problem whatsoever. So I will go through and trim up all the white salvia that way, and essentially it's the exact same thing with my rockin' salvia. It's just a lot taller and a lot thicker. So I'm gonna pull everything, take all these big stalks down, and like I said, there will be some salvia, some foliage left exposed, and that's perfectly fine. Eventually it'll all get zapped and it's no big deal, but there's no point in just completely trying to trim all that back right now. I'll just let the freeze get it and it'll be fine. So it's, like I said, it's not hard at all. You're just taking those stalks all the way back down to the ground. For now, we'll leave this foliage. I think we have a couple of nights coming this week that we're going to be in the 20s. So it'll just be a couple of days where this will be exposed. And then once we get all this cleaned up, we can get the blower in here and get all the leaves blown out, because we had the forest pansy, of course, right beside of us, and it has dropped all of its leaves. That flower bed has been blown out. But when you have foliage like this, then those leaves get stuck inside of the foliage. I've had people ask me, why do I, take the leaves out, and why don't I just leave them in there for like, protection and decompose? Well, the thing is that those leaves are a great harbor and home for insects that are not beneficial. I was just pulling out something over in the forest pansy bed. I pulled back some leaves. It was an annual that had died from the freeze. So I pulled it back, and there were these giant slugs all underneath the leaves at the base of the plant. I do not want to have a hospitable environment for slugs. So that is why I get these extra leaves out. You can blow them out in the yard, then you can bring the mower through, chop them up, and use them for leaf litter, get them nice and fine and ground, and then they are great to go back in your bed. But when they're big like this, they're not gonna break down very fast, so we want to get them all nice and chopped up, nice and little. So that was a little extra side note for you. So we're gonna go through and it's the same thing. We're just gonna go through and get everything cut back. I'm gonna have a huge pile of debris for me. When I'm done, that'll all go kind of into our compost quote bin and let it break down for the winter. So yeah, just gonna get all these cut back. Okay, so now we've got all of the salvias have been cut back. Jerry got the blower and blew out all those extra leaves for me. So now I can actually see where I am going to plant my jonquils. Now, what we're going to plant here are some little tiny little petite jonquils. They're only going to get to be about 8 to 10 inches tall. Now, you may notice that I'm calling them jonquils. Depending on where you are in the country, you may know them as like daffodils, right? So in the South, basically from like zones 7 to 10, something like that, we really need to plant the Jonquilla cultivar variety, species, whatever you want to call it, of daffodils. And so, because those are the most heat tolerant, loving daffodils on the market. So they will do really, really well for us here in the South. You don't have to pre-chill them. You can just get them in the ground as soon as they come to you from whatever, if you order them in the mail like I do. As soon as they come to you, get them in the ground so that way they can get established and come up in the spring. So if you're in those warmer zones, you're going to want to make sure that you get a jonquil, so that way they will naturalize for you. They will come back year after year. They do not have to have that really extended period of cold, say like a a tulip or certain alliums do. So they do really well. Now, what we're going to do today, this is twinkling yellow. And like I said, it's only going to be about 8 to 10 inches tall, a very bright, vivid yellow. When they came to me, they had already started to sprout just a little bit. I am not concerned about that. I will plant these, I think it's like 6 inches deep in the ground. I actually have some jonquils that I have had in the ground for several years. They have already started to show just a little bit of foliage up at the top. It is fine. These bulbs know what to do. They know how to handle our temperatures, and they will be just fine. So my plan is to put them in groups of like some large groups. So I have my power planter and I have the larger auger on it. That way it'll make a nice big hole. I'm thinking maybe like 10 bulbs per hole. This is a bag of 100. So maybe I'll do 8 holes, and then with that 20 or so that I have left over, I'm going to come back with my hory and just make little small holes and put a couple in there in the smaller holes. That way it looks like the jonquils are already starting to naturalize. It's not going to be in a nice straight row. It is going to be more free form with bigger sections and then little smaller ones coming off of that. Like I said, it just kind of mimics how they will look as if they had been here for a couple of years already and are starting to naturalize and spread. So we're going to get these in the ground. I will have to be careful because I have irrigation lines in here and I have lighting wire in here. Jerry is behind the camera, so I am sure that he will assist me in making sure that I do not hit anything, because I do not want us to start having to repair this afternoon. While I'm sitting here talking about it and thinking about it, when I was pruning back these Rockin' Playing the Blues salvia, I was telling Jerry at the end of the season I was starting to notice that the salvias seemed either I had too many in here or they were very, very happy here because they were huge. I mean, they were ginormous, and they were starting to really kind of infringe and take over too much of my roses. And if you can't see it, we'll show it to you, but especially the one in the middle. This is the Susan Williams Ellis, and it is got nice foliage up top, but down at the bottom it's kind of bare. So I am thinking that I'm gonna have to probably take out this back row of the salvia. I kind of window paned it as 2 rows, and so they're staggered back and forth because I really do want the roses to be the star of this flower bed. I will still have the guara in here, and I will still have 4 or 5 other of the salvias. I just won't have as many, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to sit on it and think about it for a little bit. If you have experience with roses, salvias, feel free to shoot me your thoughts on that. I'm just afraid that the salvias are going to overtake and impede the growth of the roses, and I know that the roses need as much light and air circulation as possible. So I think that's what ultimately is going to have to happen, but we're not going to do that today. We're just going to focus on getting the jonquils in the ground today. This is where I get into trouble because one thing leads to another, and so I'm going to stay focused and get the jonquils in the ground. That way they will be done today. So I'm going to figure out where my 8 big holes are going to go. That will probably be dependent on where the irrigation and the lighting wire is, but basically up here in the front. I wanted to be up here, up close, because they're nice and small and petite. They will bloom nice and early. And of course, with the daffodils, the jonquils, you want to let their foliage die back naturally. So as it is dying back as the season progresses, my guara and my salvia will start to come alive and will kind of hide that foliage so it won't look so unsightly. But in the springtime, man, it's going to be so nice to look out and see these sweet little faces shining at us. So 8 holes have to be dug. Okay, so I got my 8 big piles planted with jonquils. Brenda sees a bee and she's very focused on the bee. So I would love to say she's super focused on what I'm saying, but she's not. She's watching that yellow jacket over there. All right, so what I wanted to do is take a moment and just show you how I'm going to plant these ones, good girl, as single bulbs. So I have a group of 10. I have a group of 10 here, 1 here. Brenda is sitting on one, and then there's some underneath her front paws. So it kind of gives you an idea of where they are. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take my Hori Hori. If you don't have a Hori Hori, man, you need to put this on your Christmas wish list because it is the absolute best tool ever. A ton of different manufacturers make them. So there's not one particular brand that I just love. I mean, I like mine because this is one I have, but you know, find one or a manufacturer that you love and ask for one from them on your Christmas list. So what we're gonna do is basically take this Hori Hori and just kind of make a little bit of a hole, right? So you can easily get in there and get a hole. Jonquils need to go about 6 inches roughly in the ground. So you're just gonna come in here, right? Kind of like you would a trowel. And if it's not exactly 6 inches, but the Hori Hori does have the markers on there so that you can see exactly how deep you are going. I'm gonna take a little sprinkle of my biotone. If you had bulb tone would work well too. I just happen to have the biotone, so that's what I'm gonna use. And then take I'm actually gonna go ahead, since these are small bulbs, I'm gonna do like 2 in there. Nestle them in. Preferably you want them to have, this makes it really easy, you want to have the growth coming up at the top and the roots will come out the bottom. If you happen to have, and you just throw them in there, or when you put the soil back on there and you don't know which end is up, don't freak out about it. The bulb will figure it out. Like I said, they're a lot smarter than what we give credit for. So they're nestled down in there. Bring your soil, tamp it down in there, and there you go. So by doing that periodically, where you have a big group and then you have little small groups coming off of it, it gives it a much more natural look, as if it had, like I said, been here for years and, you know, been naturalizing on its own. So we're gonna take that Hori Hori, get it down in there, shake it back and forth, get a little spritz of biotone, drop it down in there, get your bulbs. Boom, boom, cover them up. There you go. They get to have a nice long winter's nap. So what we're gonna do is just go back through here and sprinkle out the rest of these bulbs. I have, I don't know, maybe 20 in here, and we'll get them through here. I've done this once before, kind of near the berm, gosh, a month or so ago, and I did leave my holes, my big holes open so I could see where my little ones were gonna go. I didn't even think about it this time. I just went ahead and covered them up, but I do know roughly where they are. But if you wanna leave all your holes exposed before you cover everybody up, that way you can have a definite organized, natural look to the whole thing. So we're just gonna get the rest of these in here, and Brenda's gonna chase yellow jackets with her mouth and see how that goes for her. Okay, my sweet friends, so man, it feels good to have this project complete. One, it looks much, much better. Lots tidier, neater, cleaner. Makes me very happy. Jerry's behind the camera chuckling at me because he knows that it makes me very happy to see things neat and tidy. And then to have the added benefit of having 100 sweet little jonquils in the ground. They're going to get nice and rooted and established, so that way come spring their little heads are going to pop up right here and just be very happy with their really bright, vivid yellow flowers just nodding in the breeze. We will come back through this bed. I was just telling Jerry, so we have ordered from like our local, and I call it like a soil farm. So it's a landscape supply company that they make all these different kinds of blends of soils. They have mulches and all sorts of different things. So we asked them to make us up a specific compost blend. So it's a compost and then a aged pine bark fine mixture. And so we're going to use that, especially like in our planting beds. as like a top dress and as a mulch. So since I've come in here and I have exposed raw soil with those jonquils, planting those, I want to come back through here and just do a nice top dressing of that compost pine bark vine mixture. The roses will absolutely love it because they love a really rich, organically rich soil, and as will all of these, the guaras, the jonquils, and the salvias. I can almost guarantee that I'm going to pull out those 4 salvias that are in the back, just because if they grew that much this year in their first year, and then my roses are their size, they are just way too close to each other. So I'm gonna need to pull those out. I'm not gonna do that today. The sun is starting to set. It's been a good day. We're gonna leave everything as it is for now. But yeah, you're just constantly going out in your garden. If you have 5 minutes, if you have 35 minutes, or you have 5 hours, just get outside. It will make you feel so much better. Even if you are in snow right now, I know we have sweet friends that are up in Michigan and they are covered in snow, but you know what? They are still going outside and they are still going for their walks and they are still going out and exploring and looking at their gardens. It will make you feel so much better to get outside, get some fresh air, get some good vitamin D, and it will certainly improve your mood, and check on your garden, see how it's doing in the wintertime. But the projects will continue here with cleanup and little odds and ends as we go. I do have a lot of jonquils to go in the ground, and then on my calendar, it just reminded me today that my tulips have finished their pre-chilling stage. I have them in the fridge, so in the next, probably this week, I will get them in the ground, I think in the berm. So lots of projects still going on here at the end of November. December is knocking on the door. Lots of fun in the garden. As always, we so appreciate you. Thank you so much for gardening with Creekside. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends. Renee, you can't have your you can't have your hamburger, Sister Sue.